Okay, here I am again. I was going for my walk in the cold rain and again thinking. So there was I record a lot of videos, probably about like between 45 and 75%. I don't post because those are me working through, looking at the patterns, observing things, and going through the emotions. And I'm not the type of person that enjoys showing my emotions to people because I can get very extreme. Well, the other day, while I was actually discussing something completely different, something came up into my memory, and it was about an identity. So I want to show you that I'm not always, hyper and happy and just spewing nonsense. I struggle. Not a lot. It's not really a struggle. It's more along the lines of I'm allowing the things that I've never allowed myself to say or feel, I'm allowing them to come out. And a lot of this is because of the research that I am doing, the creations I'm creating, these videos, the messages that I receive through observation of my own inner self as well as the outside world around me. And so a lot of these observations can bring up things that I haven't thought about in years. And it's actually really amazing because now I can go back and not just speak these things, but I do go back and I watch them because I need to understand. And while I was walking, it occurred to me that this is an extremely important message. I talk a lot about change, and I show you all of the amazing things that I understand. But I don't show you how deeply I am affected by these changes. And it can seem on the surface or even through video that it's an easy process. It's not. Sometimes it gets really messy. And one of the things that's really hard is the detachment from the identity. I've been speaking a lot about archetypes and seeing an archetype as a skill, not as an identity. And this leads to me discussing the warrior. It's the skills I have gotten as a warrior that give me that archetype. However, you will see me refer to myself quite a bit as a vet, and I refer to myself as a former airman. And when I was recording these videos today, something struck me that I realized why that identity was so hard for me to lose. I didn't receive a lot of accolades growing up. Even when I had a solo and was the leading lady in a play, I had no one there to cheer me on. Even at my basic training graduation, my parents weren't in the stands. They were in a van behind in the parking lot on the other side of a field. So I'd never really gotten recognition, and I'd never really been able to be proud of myself, because even though I was the only one of my siblings that graduated from high school until recently, it it was kind of insulting, my graduation party. I literally received a letter saying, "Hey, we didn't think any of Alan's kids would fucking graduate. Congratulations." Oh. So again, like I'd been talking about this archetype that I had had, and as a child, it was the underestimated hero. It didn't matter what I excelled at. I never was told, "Hey, good job." As a matter of fact, when I presented my creations, it was usually shamed. And so when I joined the military, it was the very first time in my life I had ever been rewarded. I got honor graduate to prove my worth to my father. He wasn't even there. But the United States military, oh, they fucking recognized me for it. I got a fucking ribbon. The excellence I achieved every single time I did something, oh, I was recognized. Every single fucking time. And so for me, this was the very first time in my life that anybody was able to see my ability. So, with that in mind, I wanted to show you how difficult it is to lose an identity and then to loathe oneself for the loss of such an identity. I'll see you on the other side. I sat down. I opened my military trunk. Saw my awards, my certificate, my uniform, my boots, my flag, my constitution, my Yankee Doodle, my Air Force picture, my drill rope, my medals. And then I thought, I just bought 9 3/4 acres. I have a family who loves me. I'm getting ready to move into a cabin like I always wanted in the middle of the woods. I have a husband who doesn't doubt anything about me. Loves me for exactly who I am. I have everything I could want. And it's all because that which I thought was everything went away. You see, this is 2024. 8 years and 8 months after I got out of the United States military. That's as long as I was in. It took me 8 years to finally let go. It was hard. But so freeing. That was my favorite identity. And I had to let it go. I was no longer the airman, and that hurt. Now I was the disabled vet, and that hurt worse. It hurt worse because I didn't feel like I earned it. But here was a box saying the exact opposite, you know? 2 medals. So many fucking distinguished awards. Yes. I was a damn good airman. And it hurt so bad to lose that. And I hated myself for years. Every time I saw that disabled vet, I disgusted myself. I felt fucking weak. It made me so angry at me. Because that meant that I was the reason I lost my career. For so long. That was the only thing I was proud of myself for. So it hurt pretty bad when I lost it. Because it proved them right that I would never amount to anything and I would lose everything because I was crazy. Oh, God. I just watched it again. Like the third or fourth time. Because I know it's not all gone. Because, like I said, it wasn't over. Because everything that I had stated in that video when I first opened that box that I had was all a lie. And I found that out in the coming months. Everything that I had at that moment, I don't have anymore, aside from my 2 children. And I will be honest with you, they didn't love or respect me before I left. My children will be purchasing their very first gift they've ever given me in my life this year. They're 10 and 11. I'm sorry, 9 and 10. Almost 11. My bad. So when I was talking about that, it actually goes into the next part of how I unraveled even more when I realized that everything that I had thought I had gained since my career wasn't at all what I thought it was. And I am not saying that I'm still struggling with this. I'll be honest, watching it a third time kind of helped. Speaking it and then experiencing my own energy And then when this last time when I was watching it, I was also adding in commentary, so it allowed me to release a little bit more. The reason why I felt like this was an absolutely necessary thing to talk about. If you're a disabled vet, you know how I feel, especially if your career was ended very young or even at the peak of your career. And this is a difficult time of year. I can only imagine how much more difficult it is to have a physical wound on top of the emotional wounds. I have physical wounds from being in the military, but they don't affect my life on a daily basis like the loss of a limb or even shrapnel in your leg. So while I have the ability to heal my mental mind, it's a little bit more difficult for those of you with a physical disability. You are reminded on a constant basis of this. Now, the reason why this strikes me so much is I just started re-watching, in very small doses, I don't do well in front of a TV, Sherlock, the BBC version with Benedict Cumberbatch, and I can't remember the other actor's name, but I absolutely love both of them, especially doing this Sherlock Holmes like combo. I'm a huge fan of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I love Sherlock, and I'm very picky about my Sherlocks. But I absolutely wanted to talk about Watson. So, in the very first episode, Watson, if you're unfamiliar with Sherlock, is a vet. He's a medic, doctor, surgeon out of Afghanistan, Iraq, because it's a modern BBC version, right? So he has got one of the very first scenes is him waking up in cold sweat. You know what that is. The imagery that he was having in the flashes before he woke up. A lot of survivor's guilt, explosions. Then he wakes up, gets out of bed, and has the limp. Okay? Now, eventually, that limp goes away because it's psychosomatic, as it was in the books. But for those of you whose injury is not psychosomatic, every time you have to use that cane to stand or walk, it is a reminder. Now, Watson wasn't dealing with having these flashbacks because of trauma. It was the opposite for him. He was having these flashbacks because they were calling him back. He was in his element. That's his main archetype skill, was that ability to remain calm, cool, and collected in a very stressful environment. And this is again in that very first episode. He's in a very stressful environment. He has just been kidnapped. He has absolutely no idea with whom he is speaking, but he knows the absolute power of this man because he's controlling the cameras on the streets. So he knows this is a serious situation. Not a shimmer. Perfectly steady, right? Because that is the training of the warrior. And this is when he's in his element, okay? So him having that limp is a constant reminder that he's no longer in his element. That is what I feel on a daily basis. But it's not a limp. It's the reminder that I lost my cool. It's a reminder that I lost my steady. And it hurts. Which is why I have built my life the way that I have built my life. This is me healing. I have to go. But before I do, I've been talking a lot about this transitioning of archetype, okay? As we evolve, I'm no longer holding on to that as an identity. It's no longer, I am an airman, I am a disabled veteran. No, this is my archetype skill that I have taken on. I have taken on the warrior, not only in the spiritual, mental battle I've had my whole life, but also in a physical way that allowed me to find structure and discipline in a way that would eventually, because it took a little while to recover from the shock of what I went through, like once I was able to finally come full circle and finish out this cycle, the 12 years it's been, it's allowed me, well, 13 now, it's allowed me to be able to remove that identity and take all of those assets I gained in that identity and turn it into my archetype skill tree. Okay? So now I'm no longer holding on to this. I am no longer an airman. I am now seeing myself as the transition from warrior to wounded warrior to warrior monk to wounded healer. And so now I don't just have that warrior healer in there, I also have the wounded healer. This is me being able to realize that that period in time of my life was so massively important. And yes, it was really, really hard to deal with the fact that that was the only time in my life I've ever gotten attaboys. Aside from like one thing when I was in like as a drug counselor, like there's not a lot of like thank yous in that world. It's a lot of disappointments, as a matter of fact. Like it's a lot of like I lost a lot of people. That was hard. That was hard. So but it was a transition that I needed, right? So I had to experience life as that active warrior, then that wounded warrior, and then that ability to finally shift into that warrior monk. But that was necessary for me to also go into the therapy so I could heal that wounded warrior and not just be the wounded warrior, but also the wounded healer for those who are not necessarily at that warrior level yet, right? I'm not saying that they're below it. I'm just saying they haven't realized that it's in there yet and they haven't taken on that archetype. That's what I'm saying. I'm here to be able to show them, hey, you're not just a person. You're a soul. And that allows me to be able to transition even those who may not have fought a physical war, but have fought a war inside, maybe like on the streets or in homelessness or in addiction, or even, sometimes it's just family. And even other times it's literally just them or their environment or the society itself. Like there's a war that all of us fight inside. Just because it's not a physical war doesn't mean you aren't a warrior. So being able to experience it in both the physical and internal world allowed me to blossom from just one kind of healer through the whole process to a whole different kind of healer. I really hope that this helps in some way. I know I cannot take away a physical disability, but that mental block I can help with. Bye, guys.